Hello, Ewald.
Hey,
How are you doing?
good and you?
I'm very good, thank you. For a Wednesday, I actually have quite a lot of energy, which is quite weird. Because normally by this time on a Wednesday, I'm pop after because I play netball on a Tuesday, which
Oh,
drains.
wow, that sounds like a lot of effort.
Aggressive. It is. It's my last game next week, so I'm almost completely done with it, which is lovely. Welcome, Sam. Hello, how you doing?
Hi, Cans. Hi, Ewald.
Hi,
I hope I'm
Samantha.
pronouncing that correctly. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you both for being on time. I'm actually surprised that that doesn't happen often. I mean, for Sam it does, but she organizes events, so she kind of has to. Although, Ewald, you're probably so used to being at events by now that you're also just on time.
I don't trust computers,
Ah, very smart.
so I'm a little bit early usually just to see is everything working.
Smart,
Hello.
smart. Hello, Kyle.
Hey, Carl.
Welcome.
How
How are
you guys
you
doing?
doing?
Hi.
Good, and you?
Very good. Thanks for joining. I don't actually know how did you find out about this challenge?
Through Sam. Sorry.
Through Sam. Ah,
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, thank you for that, Sam. I love a good referral. And Michaela's here and Megan is here. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. It's so nice to see so many of your lovely faces here today. I guess there's quite a lot of people here already, so we may as well get started with some introductions. I'm not going to go around and do round robin, so don't worry, I won't put you on the spot, other than those of you I've already put on the spot, so thank you for bearing with me. Um, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Candice. I am the main organizer at the Candid Collab, which basically is a community where we help entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs slash consultants reach and realize those dreams. Many of the other co-organizers who work with me are experts in marketing, product, instructional design, all sorts of things that will help you run an online business. So that is why we are running this challenge, the Community Catalyst for Growth Challenge. It's a very big mouthful. I actually need to think of a way of shortening that. So if you have any feedback, let me know. And so just so that you know the agenda for today, okay? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I ran this challenge and why I'm having you all here today, what we're going to talk about. And then I'm going to give you practical examples that I've had quite briefly that can show you the potential of what it actually means to network and build your marketing funnel through communities. And then I'll just show you a basic model that I made with Napkin AI. I'll show you that tool later. And then there'll be some time for questions. So we should be half an hour. If anyone wants to stay on longer and ask any more questions, you're welcome to, because a lot of you are joining for the first time today. So yeah, just to catch you up, so far all we've done is we've spoken about our main goals for joining the challenge, so why you really want to be marketing yourself, I guess. And the other thing we've started talking about in the community is who is your audience, who is your main target market. So if you like, you're welcome to put that in the chat as well, so I can follow through and respond if necessary. If you have any questions, you're welcome to just raise your hand, because this is a Google Meet. My note taker is recording this, just so that we do have some record that this happened. Okay, so let me pause. Any questions, thoughts, anything on what I've said so far? Nothing. Okay, cool. There's also reactions, by the way, so you can do that so I don't feel like I'm alone in the room, because I hate talking online for some reason sometimes because of that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, so why am I running this challenge? I hate LinkedIn and social media. I find it very cringe. Ewold knows I did a talk about how to market yourself not on LinkedIn recently, and I've very vocal about it, honestly, because I think it's possible to find clients, at least at a very small scale, without having to be a social media strategist or an expert on any one channel. And the way I've done that is through community. And basically, I had a lot of people reaching out to me asking me, how do I do this? And how does it work? And it's great the first time I explain it, and maybe the 10th time I explain it, but to explain it 20 times, I'm starting to get sort of like, I started to get over it in that sense. So now I wanted to do this in a new iteration in the form of a challenge where I'll run it every probably quarter or so, and anyone who wants to join can learn through it. So yeah, this is the very first iteration. Thank you for being my founding guinea pigs. If you have any feedback, you're welcome to email me. If you have any complaints, you can message CandidBot. That's a bot in the community who is also me, but is a lot nicer, I promise. Okay, so now I want to explain to you a little bit about what I've done personally to find clients and give you like real numbers on the impact that's had. So some of you may have heard the story. I will keep it brief. I basically got retrenched around COVID time, and I was an event planner. That sucked a lot because no one was hiring event planners, and I had to pivot really fast with my skill set of I can write content, I've worked in instructional design, and I can put together communities. And that led me to a product called Circle, which is basically a community platform where you can host your communities. Anyone can start a community. It is the community that Candid is run on, for those of you that have joined so far. So I managed to find a really, really poor paying job to set up someone's Circle community, because I was determined to become an expert at the product. But you could only get into the product community where you could do most of the learning if you were already an admin on someone's account. So I had to hack it to find that first client. But when I got into Circle's main product community, what I basically started doing was, I was literally earning like $10 an hour for like a really intense, something that the main Circle partners charge up to $100 an hour for. So the price comparison was hurtful, but I took the bullet, and eventually I got into the community, and literally all I did was every time someone introduced themselves, I said hello. And I said, welcome to the community at first. And then I kind of started getting drawn in by their Q&A box where people were asking random questions about how to use Circle or how to build their communities. And I started answering them. And if I didn't have an answer for them, I would tag one of the people I met in the introductions box who I thought might have an answer for them. And within like 2 months of doing this very often, because I was unemployed and didn't have work, I ended up having people start tagging me and stuff because they thought I was a community manager. So I definitely overdid it a little bit, and no one was upset with me, but I know that that's not the kind of capacity everybody can have. Most recently, I don't use Circle that often, but initially I did, and within 5 months, Circle, the team reached out to me, and they basically asked me if I would like to do a webinar with them. And I did the webinar, and suddenly people started reaching out to me to actually start building on Circle. And by this point, I was doing like random marketing jobs, anything, copywriting, anything that was coming my way. But I finally got my first community job, and within like basically consistently since then, I have had all my bills paid through work coming in through Circle. So that has been amazing to not have to worry about where my main bills are coming from. If I want to aspire and reach, then I can go do extra work. But for the very basics, I basically, the only difference or the progression of that is this year in April, Circle asked me to become one of their official solutions partners, mainly because they can't serve all their customers, which is great for me because I've become really good at their product after engaging with all of their stuff for over a year. And that was in April we went live. So now we've been live for a year minus 4 months. I'm not good at maths. I'm not a maths person. But now the stats, because since that time in Circle, since the very beginning, I have managed to get 6 speaking gigs. So that's over a period of a year and a half. And that's 1 a quarter, which is not bad at all. Some of them are podcasts, which I didn't have to produce, which is amazing. It was free content. Others were free invitations to other communities of people who were in my audience, which was another gift, believe it or not. And then actually, I think there's some people in this call from one of the partner communities I've been in, Forge. So hello to all the Forges here. So that was amazing. I achieved partner status, and because since then I've had so many clients reach out to me, they've even given me a Circle like verified badge, which is literally just a tag, but it makes me feel very special in my heart. Where we don't get company rewards as freelancers, you know. So I've also partnered with 5 new collaborators, which is massive because it's not just me. Every time I do something, I feel like I have a support network and I have people supporting me and I can support them in return in doing really cool stuff. Like if any of you have seen my Instagram where I dressed up very awkwardly for Halloween, for example, that was one of those challenges. And then in terms of this year, I actually managed to get 50% of my annual income in through Circle leads, which is massive. And my company is brand new. We were only a year and a half years old, basically. And we are literally covering all our costs and making a little bit of profit. So it's amazing to be able to say that like half of that doesn't have to come from social media, because that is a very scary bet in my opinion. So yeah, and that has actually only come from 4 clients, if I'm honest with you. So the clients you can get are really big on Circle or on any sort of tool, most often Notion even. So yeah, that is how I would say my Circle community success story. But since then, I've collaborated in multiple communities, and I always try to be active in at least 5 communities in some way at a time, except for December when I'm going on holiday and I'm not touching my computer. So, okay, I'm gonna pause and take some water. So the last thing I want to just talk about, and let me just go into present mode because Canva hates me sometimes, and I didn't want to leave it there while you waited. Okay. Can you see my screen? Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. Okay, so this is the approach I basically took when, or actually that I take when entering any community now. We may be able to smush these steps eventually, but this is the model that I got going right now. And the first is to know your audience, your niche audience. That is depending on the project you're working in, or even like I did in a field you're aspiring to work in. Like that is one of the easiest ways to get into a field or to get certain work, is to go find the people who want that work done. So once you've got the audience, you figure out where they live online. You can figure out where they live in real life, but that would be creepy. So I suggest rather just try to do that online or at meetups at the most. And often you can, like, that's why I've actually created this space, is I can suggest some communities, but based on how many people we have now, I think we've got about 10 people in the challenge, we'll be able to get other advice from communities we may not know about, because sometimes the communities that have given me the most value have been some of the very smallest communities, because small communities are often expensive and they have very high value clients potentially in them. So don't always discount the size, just always make sure you've got the right audience, because, you know, if Fiverr, for example, Fiverr is a community, technically a monetized community, but like the competition on Fiverr is almost as hard as LinkedIn. It's like not worth it. I tried for a while on Fiverr and I was never successful. I literally never got a single job on Fiverr. And I've only now got my first lead ever from LinkedIn this week. So thanks to Evolt for that with your community. Okay, so then the next step, and this is the most important thing, is you have to find a way to contribute. And this is where a lot of people fall. And it's the hardest thing to do, because you don't have to necessarily be going out there starting posts and saying like, this is my opinion, or I am an expert at this, like I did. You can start very, very basic by just saying hello to everyone. I mean, you might feel like the doorman, but when you start to feel like the doorman, maybe you'll feel a little bit braver to reach out and start answering some questions or connecting people to each other. I mean, like recruitment, there's a whole industry about just being able to connect people with other people. So that's a whole career in itself. Okay, so contributions can look like answering questions, and they can also look like volunteering. So in Circle, which is a massive community, like answering a bunch of questions, it actually goes a long way. In a much smaller community, your questions, your little comments actually have so much more weight because it's a smaller community. Most people are going to see it. But I can promise you that about probably 80% of community managers would be so grateful if you came to them and said, hey, could I be on your podcast? Or, hey, could I help with a session? Even if it's just hosting a session, or if you have a challenge that you would like to run in the community, like once you're there, you can actually start showing that you're willing to do a little bit more. And that pushes you into about the top 10% of most communities, because only 10% of any community is really a contributor. About 90% of most communities don't really do much. Everyone's a lurker. So if all you have to do is get into the top 10% of engaged people, and you will be on that community team's radar. And before you know it, they start going, oh, we've got this problem. Who do we look to? And they're like, oh, wait, this person answers those questions for us all the time. Or this person has some skills. Maybe they know someone because they seem to know everybody. So once you start volunteering or like going that little bit further with your contributions, it may mean free work, but I consider that marketing. Like speaking at a conference, that results in real clients for me. Speaking at an event, even if it's free, that results in real followers or subscribers to my newsletter and people who find what I have to say interesting, and maybe awkward, but you know, interesting. So that is where you actually, before you know it, people start knowing you. It's very weird for me in Circle, because now I get tagged to answer questions, and I used to have like half an hour in my calendar every morning to go into Circle, and now I have 2 slots in my calendar, maybe 1 a week, where I can go in and reply in the Circle community, because they've put me on their website. I don't have to be there as much anymore because they are promoting me to their members. I don't have to do that work. So that is, if you have to think about like the flywheel effect, you know, the momentum later on of having content out there in the world, having other people who want to share that content because it's free content for them, you know, that really means you become some sort of expert in those little communities, whether you're expecting it or not, actually. And from there, you get leads. To be honest, you can actually get leads all the way from here. But by the time you're a thought leader, getting leads is easier, because often you'll be given a web page like I have on Circle, where they're like, hey, everybody, here's Candace's name, here's her surname, here's her email address, contact her. So that is like, I just get leads and I'm sitting here like eating a burger, and that's the easiest lead I've ever gotten. And of my leads, by the way, I meant to say like 50% of my leads from Circle actually end up either becoming a member, or maybe they don't work with me, but they work with someone else in the collab, one of our other experts. So it's always been a very productive and useful process for me. Okay, so I was 5 minutes longer with that than I intended to be. But that is basically how I go about it. And as I said, in the community, we've kind of been talking a little bit about how we've been starting discussing this process. If you're not in the community yet, there's the link. You can click on it and join there. But yeah, I guess now open to questions. As a first step, if you haven't yet, we want to know your goal, we want to know your audience. And from tomorrow, we're going to actually start looking for communities and asking around in the space to recommend communities that you may know of in your spheres. So yeah, that's where we're going. Questions, thoughts, comments, water. Nothing. Amazing. Thank you so much for the applause.
It's such a cool story.
Thank you.
So I'm a little bit curious though
Mm.
about you've built up this Circle's reputation and all of that. When you say that you're no longer that involved, does that just mean that you're no longer doing the general stuff and you're focused on client work, or what does that mean?
Good point. So I basically I don't answer questions in the community anymore. So I don't go in every day and say hello, or go in, like, I don't have a routine of that, because they just come to me or I get tagged. So once a week I'll go in and I'll just respond to everything I've been naturally tagged in. I might do a little scroll to see if there's anything interesting, but overall I don't really have dedicated time to do that in that community anymore, because I have a rule because I tend to overcommit and get very overwhelmed and do too many communities at once. So at once I'll only manage 2 communities, one of them being my own and another being clients. And then I'll work on small projects within up to 3 other communities. So those are like the max that I'll work in. And at the moment, I'm only engaging in 3 external communities at a time. But as you can imagine, that's 8, and 5 is like my optimum. So that's why, like, I'll only log into Circle once a month, once a week, sometimes once every 2 weeks. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that helps a lot, because if anybody else has a question, please jump in. I have a second question, but I'll let someone else ask a question first.
Oh, shame. No, go for it, Ifel. They can put up their hand or post in the questions in the chat.
Nobody want to?
Shy for a community challenge. I challenge you to ask one question. Go first, okay? Zakir is Wartooth, but I think he has one. Go for it, Ifel.
So I was part of a community where I ended up being tagged in everything, for everything.
Mm.
I've been in my particular industry for a little while, so I know a little thing or two.
Mm.
And what happened was that everybody just started to just pile on me for everything.
Mm.
And the rest of the community just sat back, and it was just consumption. There was no contribution.
Mm.
And it reached a point where I was spending hours a week, literally days a week, answering questions and things, and it wasn't leading anywhere.
Mm.
And I made the decision to retire from the community in total, because it wasn't adding any value to my life. And what's interesting is that all the people that were always reaching out to me for answers, I have heard from none of them again. Because now if you reach out to me, you're going to have to pay. And that's enough.
Yes.
So what I want to get out of this at the end of the day is figure out how do I make that switch to still contribute, but contribute in such a way and towards something that has some kind of a value for me at the end of the day.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting, that's where you actually go from being someone who's contributing to be like a top contributor, where you're now one of the people who are actually producing content for the community and actually driving it. It can be very exhausting. And I would say, like, when you get to that point, you can back down. And that tells you that what you're saying is resonating with people and that people are interested. Like, it might be for the way you say it, but there's something in what you're doing that they want to hear. Now, a lot of people are going to want stuff for free, and you have to have a way to screen against them. And that's where you like almost build up your marketing. I don't want to say funnel, but your levels of marketing. So from there, you could release a newsletter, for example. So if they are asking these questions, you can say, okay, cool, that's going to be my next week's newsletter. You have to subscribe here to get it. So you may be giving them an answer for free, but you are still building your own reputation in that. And at the same time, there's only so much you can do, right? So what's nice is, I'm sure in the community, often you get the same questions over and over and over. So what's nice is if you answer the question as a newsletter or as a blog article, then you always have this like FAQ database you can go back, which is people can go and read, and you don't have to answer the same question every time. You should be like, cool, go to my blog, cool, go to my blog. And so that's where it starts to get a little bit more complex. And it's also ideal, like I've learned this year, that your mailing list is actually very important for when you do want to start selling. It's not something I'm sure you would love as a marketing allergic person involved, but having you can have a Substack, for example, or even if you prefer video as a format, you can have a Patreon, though PayPal's expensive. There are platforms that you can host and kind of get subscription fees, or even just for free, but people have to subscribe to get to your content. And then beyond that, you have the option to start monetizing when and if you want. So if, for example, with me, I started getting a lot of questions about how do I market in communities, then you can like, okay, cool, I'm going to run a challenge because I'm off in December and want to torture people. So we're going to do this, So then you have another way to engage them, which maybe afterwards you want to upsell. That's where people start making courses eventually, and you have the option to do one-on-one coaching even. And some people also use that as a funnel to find mentees, or if you are more of a like, you want to give back with that extra time rather than like productize yourself more. So you can go that route, or even volunteer for nonprofits and get more involved in the nonprofit space. But yeah, does that answer that question?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm quite involved with a few things, but I need to sort of, some things are like I'm involved with some of the nonprofit things, all of that, and that's fine. But I do want to niche down a little bit and get away from a lot of the generic fluff that I do, and more focus on smaller things. And I have at one stage, I've been approached by Pact and stuff to write some technical books, and I've always told them to just go away, because there's no money in that, right? It's a ton of work, and you don't really make money in it. But it could be a good marketing ploy to say, hey, I'm the guy that wrote that book.
Books are a lot. I don't take on any clients who write books currently, because it's not an industry I am very well aware of, and it's also an industry where you kind of have to know a publisher. You have to know like someone who wants you to write the book, who's going to do the distribution for you, and that side, like, I don't have any ins, soz. I can refer you to people, but yeah. So I think the people I've seen them launch ebooks for example, where you could teach something and then publish it. You can even get it like trademarked or copyrighted under your business name, and you can publish it online. You can publish it for free. You can publish it yourself on Amazon. Even you can self-publish, and that is a really good, exactly as you say, that's like one level up from, okay, I've written about that, but it's in my book here. And I mean, you can price it so that you're getting enough value out of making it. But then, because the education you give away, like we actually take for granted how much value is in the nuggets that we accidentally know, you know?
Yeah, I have thought about it, and I know quite a few authors. None of them do it for the money. None, not a single one. But it is a good marketing ploy. And I was thinking that it's maybe something to do, like make it short, little, very topic specific little booklets almost, and say, this is how you do X, Y, and Z. The Fool's Guide to this, or the Fool's Guide to that, or something just to have a conversation starter with someone.
Yes.
To say,